Hi, I'm Brenda Hardwick, and I am a fantasy and nonfiction author. And I released two books during the lockdown. I'm going to be reading for the Strong Woman category from The Conductor, Book Two of the Circle. I hope you enjoy. I'll be starting on Chapter 3. Soraya walked through the door of the glory shop, then stood still for a moment. She heard muffled voices coming from where she figured the kitchen would be and walked in that direction. As she stepped into the kitchen, Abraham and Josephine looked up from almost empty plates. "Oh, hello," she said, startled that they could see her. Abraham spoke first. "Hello, Miss Soraya. What brings you here?" Josephine whispered, "I can see through her. How can I see through her?" Before Soraya could answer, Abraham spoke again. "She be here on the dream plane, Josie. That why you can see through her. Why you here, child?" Josie pulled her attention from Josie's shocked expression and answered Abraham. "I'm not sure why I'm here, but I can guess. Your shop must be the next target, Abraham." "Oh, Lord, they coming tonight? Ain't had enough time with Josie yet. Oh, Lord." Soraya had to think fast to combat the terror she could see rising in Abraham's eyes and Josie's as well. "I think we're getting a warning, Abraham. Iona said that our enemy wasn't done and that they were coming soon. The more I walk the plane, the more comfortable I'm getting with being here, and I'm growing in my control. This is the first time that people not on the plane with me can see me, except that night with Zacharias just before he died." She shook herself out of that gruesome memory and said again, "I think we're getting a warning. I've never arrived in daylight before, always just before it happens. They're coming for you next, Abraham. What can you do to be ready for them?" At first, her question was met with total silence. Josie kept looking first at her, then at Abraham. The look of panic began to grow in her eyes. Abraham finally spoke up. "Well, I think the best we can do this time is hide, child. Josie ain't ready to be fighting, and I ain't ready either. Hiding be a good start." "Where will you hide? The workshop probably isn't far enough under the shop that you wouldn't be found if you made a noise or something fell off a shelf down there." Abraham chuckled. "I's got a secret place, Miss Soraya. 'Tis been a long while since I've been in it, but I think it'll work just fine." The chuckle turned into a full laugh. Soraya was reluctant to accept Abraham's confidence that he had a place they would be safe in, but shook it off. "Okay, I'll trust your judgment. Since it's still early here in St. Louis and nobody has shown up while I'm here tonight, my guess is it'll be tomorrow. Can you awaken Josie tomorrow morning? That way, at least she may be able to feel what is going on, even if she can't use the energy source to do anything yet." "Yes, ma'am. I'll get her woke first thing in the morning. She'll be ready to watch when they get here." "Good. Okay. I'm being pulled away now. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll check in on you guys. The other murders happened just before midnight, so they won't likely show up until late. Good night." "Night, Miss Soraya," they both chimed in as she faded and was pulled back to the home shop. Soraya lay there thinking about what had just happened. Odd that we got a warning this time. Is it me, Iona, or just because we're looking for it now, she thought. If the circle can get a warning the day before they try to take one of us out, I might be able to stop their progress. She rolled back over and slept soundly for the next several hours. Waking early, her mind raced with all of the things she needed to do. Josie and Abraham spent several hours after Soraya's dream plane visit preparing for the coming attack. "So, what did you mean when you told Miss Soraya that we have a secret place? And what exactly is it you need to do to awaken me?" "I thought my just being called here meant that I'm your apprentice." Abraham smiled. "Well, now the secret place I'm gonna show you. 'Tis a wonder it be needed now. I might need some dusting and sweeping before we can be comfortable in it. But it'll work. And the awakening, well, that's just something we's got to do anyway. You right, you is my apprentice, but we ain't fully connected yet. The awakening will do that and make it permanent." Josie's voice held some alarm when she spoke. "Permanent? Like No backing out, no changing my mind about all of this? Now, Miss Josie, you is supposed to be here, like Miss Iona says. Ain't no changing that. Miss Soraya be able to help you with all that scary feeling stuff. The awakening be part of you learning. It be the passing of the power from me to you. The spark already there, but lighting the fuse be needed for the flame to burn bright. Josie's head swam with all of Abraham's metaphors. Okay, I'm not going to profess that I understand what you're saying. I guess I'm kind of stuck with the fact that I'm here. Yes, you is, youngin. Yes, you is. But will any of this hurt? Abraham, who'd been gathering cleaning tools to take down to the workroom in preparation for their morning tasks while they talked, stopped to look her in the eyes. Miss Josie, I would never do anything to hurt you. You is important to me and the circle. I've been here a long time, and my time coming to a close. 'Tis important for you to feel good about what you be doing here. Josie saw tears welling up in the old man's eyes while he spoke. She saw his tiredness, even though she wasn't fully on board with why she had been called as his apprentice. She understood a little of the desperation in his eyes. Okay, thank you, Abraham. I will do my best to be what you and the circle need me to be. Oh, Missy, you is what we need right now. Only a bit of guidance and you be all right. He took a deep breath and handed her some of the cleaning supplies he pulled out of the cupboards. Josie helped him with the items he gathered. She was only mildly surprised when Abraham kicked the kitchen rug out of the way, revealing a trap door. She knew there must be some sort of hidey hole around here, but was surprised it was under the kitchen. The floor sounded solid when you walked on it. Lights lit up as they walked down the stairs to the workroom. Josie was amazed that the lights were all candles. She wondered how they lit themselves if she and Abraham entered the room. Josie was preparing herself to ask when Abraham spoke up. The candles be on an energy trigger. When my energy be here and movement happen, they light. When we leave, they go out. You be able to make it do that soon? Josie's voice held disbelief. If you say so, Abraham, but that seems like a tall order considering I don't have any powers. Josie, my dear one, you have the power. We just got to wake it up, is all. Once in the workroom, Abraham closed the stairs and shuffled over to the wall behind them. He stood for a moment with Josie watching intently. Saying a few words in a language that she didn't understand, Abraham raised his hands in what looked like it might be a specific pattern in front of what appeared to be a solid dirt wall. He looked back at her with a grin on his face. This be the secret I told Miss Saray about. They stood that way, staring at the wall, waiting for something to happen. After what seemed like a long time to be staring at dirt, and just when Josie was beginning to have doubts about the old man's sanity, she heard a muffled hiss, and dirt started falling to the floor from the face of the wall. A small door, about half the height of a normal one, appeared from behind approximately 6 inches of dirt, now in small piles before the opening. Abraham seemed delighted at the revelation. This here place ain't been used in more than 200 years, Miss Josie. His laugh reminded her of crackling leaves when you walk through them on the street. Abraham, really? 200 years? What is this place? The disbelief in her voice made him smile. Well, now, that be needing a story. As he spoke, he grabbed a large ring set near the top of the little door and pushed. The door moved an inch. There was another hiss of air escaping, like the room behind it had been under negative pressure, and then she heard a faint buzzing that seemed to come from above their heads. What's that noise? She said, alarm in her voice. Oh, me, I forgot. Been a long time since I've been in this here. He turned and went back to the steps and pulled them out just a tiny bit, ducking and laughing as a bright buzzing cloud swooshed past him, causing Josie to jump backwards. Whatever it was slipped through the cracked half doorway. What was that? Josie gasped, almost choking on the words from the adrenaline now coursing through her body. That be our light. They ain't been needed in a long time, but they still come. Josie was shaking her head. Just who or what are they? You youngins make me laugh. Ain't you never seen fireflies? Fireflies? Those were fireflies? I've seen them before, but never so many in a group, and certainly not flying into a room. Ha! Well, then, you've seen them now. He released the stairs and stooped to gather the tools and supplies he dropped to pull the stairs down and let the fireflies in. Here, let me help. I'm feeling kind of useless just watching you do everything, Abraham. She was only holding a couple of things he'd handed her and could easily hold more. She picked up the items he hadn't yet and offered to carry some of what he was already holding. Abraham walked back over to the little door and gave it a little kick, making it swing inward. As they entered the room, the lights came up and the buzzing first peaked, then settled into white noise in the background. Ducking through the doorway, Josie stood up and looked around in awe. The room wasn't very big, but it held a dozen cots with mattresses and blankets rolled and tied up neatly on one side, and some tables and chairs on the other. It was a long room, the ceiling just high enough for them to stand in, but not as high as the workroom ceiling. It also appeared to have another short door at the other end of the room. What is this place, Abraham? Well, let's see. We's gonna put all this here cleaning stuff over here in the corner. Then I'll spin you a yarn that'll sure enough make your mind work all night. Josie helped Abraham stack the buckets, cloths, soaps, and sponges in the corner before sitting in one of the chairs. She was truly amazed that nothing was covered in dirt, dust, or cobwebs. It made no sense. Then she thought about her life, how her life had changed in the last week, and breathed a heavy sigh. Anything was possible after what she'd already seen. Abraham sat in the chair across from her, handing her a bottle from one of his pockets. Here, Miss Josie. It ain't dusty in here, but 'tis dry. I'm a bit parched, so imagine you is too. He smiled and took a couple of hefty swallows from his bottle while watching her. She twisted off the lid, took a timid swallow, and was pleasantly surprised. It's root beer. Yep, my own recipe. Best there is around here. It's delicious. Thank you for sharing. You is welcome, Miss Josie. And now for the story. You hear tell of the railroad? Josie frowned. The railroad? You mean there's a railroad here around here somewhere? He laughed again, leaves crunching. Now, Missy, not round here, down here. Josie sat for a minute trying to fathom what the old man could possibly be talking about. Then her eyes got big. You mean the railroad? The Underground Railroad? She took a deep breath to calm herself. She had to keep reminding herself that Abraham and the other original shop owners were really old. Josie looked into Abraham's eyes and was met with a very wide, toothy grin that reached them. Yep, it be that railroad. This here shop was a getting off place for the railroad. 'Tis why she called the glory shop. Folks be shouting glory when they get here. He sat back in his chair and finished off his root beer. Josie cleared her throat. So, I knew that the Kinlock area of St. Louis was a special place, but I didn't know this. Did did she ever come here? Abraham laughed again. By she, I reckon you mean Miss Tubman? Josie nodded yes, eyes wide in fascination. Abraham slapped his leg with joy. Well, sure enough, she come here. More than once, the conductor brought through at least a couple dozen folks here to old Abraham's shop. Kinloch, St. Louis, be a different place then. Most folks was living in a box houses, except for a few of us, weren't no running water or indoor plumbing for years. Josie watched the old man's face as he remembered what his hometown used to look like. His eyes clouded, and she could tell he was seeing things as they'd been so long ago. Breaking the silence that had fallen between them, Josie cleared her throat again. I think we should get some sleep, Abraham. We can clean things up and bring some supplies in here tomorrow. Abraham shook himself. Sorry, Josie girl. I guess I was dreaming. You right. We can get this here place together in the morning. Hope we don't need to be in here much. Place be full of memories. They stood and left the room, Abraham moving a bit slower than when they first came in. As they crossed the threshold of the little door, the lights dimmed and the fireflies followed them out of the room in a tight cloud of light. The fireflies hovered in front of the stairs until Abraham pulled them down. Then they quickly disappeared as fast as they had come. When she turned to look at the doorway, the dirt wall was back in place as if it had never fallen away. Josie climbed the stairs with Abraham close behind her. She was about to ask how the fireflies got in the shop when she noticed the kitchen window was cracked about an inch and figured that was her answer. She said goodnight to Abraham and went to bed full of amazement and questions. She no longer worried about the probable murder attempt on Abraham. If that room protected runaway slaves and the conductor, it would surely protect them. The next morning, they both woke early. After a breakfast that Abraham insisted she eat, they packed a cooler and a wicker basket full of supplies from the kitchen. They both packed a few personal items to take with them and headed down to the workshop. Abraham opened their hiding place again and they loaded it up with the basket and other containers before going back into the workroom. Now, you just said a spell and I'll get the stuff we need to get you awakened. He started moving bottles and bowls around. Josie felt useless again. How about I unpack the stuff we brought down and make the room back there a little cozier than it is? Abraham looked up from stirring something into one of the bowls and nodded. That'd be a good idea, Missy. I'll explain all this here before you drink it. Josie stood up and walked towards the half door, stopping after 2 steps. Drink it, she said. I have to drink whatever it is you're mixing up over there. Abraham poured something else into the bowl and looked up. Oh, Missy, I promise it won't taste bad. Maybe I mix it with some root beer, he smiled. She shook her head. Just call me when you're ready, old man. She breathed a heavy sigh and went back into the road room. That's what she decided to call it. She got busy and it took her only what felt like a few minutes to get all of the basket items put up on some shelves she found hanging over the tables near the wall. She hadn't noticed them the night before, but they blended with the color of the dirt. She decided to leave the food in the cooler because while the room was a lower temperature than even the workroom, it still wasn't cold enough to keep food from spoiling. She turned around and chose two of the cots, one for her and one for Abraham, unrolled the mattresses and made the beds. He'd packed sheets, and there was a stack of blankets and another of down pillows on the last cot, wrapped in what turned out to be tobacco leaves. She had just placed the cooler in the corner where it was mostly surrounded by the cool dirt walls when she heard Abraham call her name. Okay, Missy, I's ready for you. Josie went back into the workshop, where Abraham waited for her. He indicated that she should sit on a stool now in the middle of the room. She sat down, hooking her feet in the bottom rungs, and looked at Abraham expectantly. Now, Missy, I promise it don't taste bad. He smiled as he handed her the stone bowl he'd been mixing things in for the last 30 minutes or so. She sniffed it first, then stuck her tongue in it, pleasantly surprised that it really didn't taste bad at all. The awakening for Josie occurred as they were all going in almost every one of the 12 shops. Only the 3 apprentice shop owners who didn't have their mentors in place were on a different schedule. Soraya would have to awaken them herself, and because of their spread out locations, she hadn't quite figured out how to do that yet. Soraya was sitting in her workshop under the home shop floor, staring at the bowl on the counter, when she heard laughter. Child, you is making me laugh even over here. A little perturbed, Soraya tried to keep the sarcasm out of her voice when she spoke. Hi, Iona. While you might find this funny, I'm not laughing. Child, this ain't that hard to figure out. First, the 3 of them can mix the elixir themselves. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Okay, but how do I get the pouches made and to them? Can I do all of that from the dream plane? Of course you can do it, child. Now, they can't all be wakened at the same time because you can't be there all at the same time. But you stagger the times and they can all be done today. Soraya shook her head in disbelief. All done today. Wow. This will certainly be interesting, if nothing else. She suddenly realized that she didn't feel Iona anymore and shouted, Thank you, Iona. Child. You welcome, echoed through the room, bouncing off the walls. Iona's voice sounded far away, but Soraya heard her clearly. Now, I guess I just have to decide. Dream plane or my goodness, what am I thinking? I can't do what I've got to do through ascending. Of course it's going to be on the plane. She shook her head, chastising herself for even considering another possibility. Okay, I'll do ascending to the 3 first, to give them the ingredients list for the elixir. Soraya wrote down all the ingredients to make sure she remembered them all in the correct order. Then she went up front to get the sending box out. After contacting Randall, Talavera, and Kenyatta and providing them with the list of ingredients and instructions on how putting the elixir together, Soraya signed off and went about more mundane tasks in the shop. She closed early to take a nap and hit the dream plane. She figured she could get all three of them awakened in a little over an hour. That would leave her tired, but back home before dusk in Kinloch. I sure hope Abraham knows what he's talking about when he says he's got a secret place for them to hide in. This was from chapter 3. It's not all of chapter 3. I hope you enjoyed hearing the reading. You can find my books from Brenda Hardwick on Amazon or at my website, www.brendahardwickauthor.com. Thank you so much.